come on, make a move. Everybody say it, make a move.
Peterson, do you have any comments on the Nazi presence at your protest?
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
Well, who does, really? On the other hand, they are kind of a go-to villain, aren't they? Often when we want to say something really bad about someone, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Very good. Very good. You know something? No soup for you!
And when you think about it, the only thing the Nazis are really good for anymore is a good laugh. I don't think I'm going out on a very long limb to predict there will never be another Hitler. That's not to say there won't be some ethnic cleansing lunacy on a small scale, or that it won't be horrific. But as a world domination strategy, this one has thankfully seen its day. Unfortunately, there may very well be another Stalin, or maybe 3,000 Stalins. The forced equality message just has this irresistible hold on our psychology. No matter how much misery it causes, we just keep going back to it again and again. Well, hope springs eternal. But back to the Nazis, it's hard to argue that they weren't the worst of the bad, or at least in contention. I think one of the things that makes the Nazis so disturbing is that they were so modern. It's easier to get past Genghis Khan or the Inquisition or the Crusades. They happened a long time ago, right? Things were different, right? The Nazis were driving around in cars, talking on telephones, making movies, and this was right in the heart of the supposedly developed Western world. In 1942, the Nazis held a business conference in Wannsee, Germany. It's a beautiful little town, southwest of Berlin, lakes, gardens, museums, nice place. The subject of the conference was the implementation of the extermination of an entire segment of German society. There was a conference table, comfortable chairs, water glasses, coffee, meeting minutes. These minutes, when finalized, were filled with euphemisms for what was really discussed, which was the logistics, transportation, buildings, materials, chemicals, that would facilitate the murder of millions of people. This is just inconceivable. Here they put in motion the widespread use of concentration camps and gas chambers for the mass execution of humans. But why build all these chambers? They were expensive, complicated, required transportation of lots of people, great distances. Well, people say they didn't want to waste bullets. Well, that didn't make any sense. They had plenty of those. Or it was logistically difficult to shoot all these people. No. They did this with no difficulty and in large numbers early in the war. There was really only one driving reason to stop the mass shootings, and that was that the soldiers who were being told to do the shooting were going insane. There was a special Nazi unit called Einsatzgruppen, which, with typical Nazi euphemism, translates benignly into operational unit. This was the death squad of up to 5,000 soldiers whose main purpose was to exterminate a very long list of enemies of the state, mostly by mass shooting. And for a while, they seemed to have little problem with this. They could somehow convince themselves that these people, almost all men, were a threat to their way of life or whatever, lunatics. But then later on, as the list of state enemies grew, these commanders started lining up women and children for these soldiers to shoot. But when the soldiers looked at these people, something went off in their heads. They were looking at a 6-year-old boy, a pregnant woman, a grandmother, and they just couldn't do it. Not for long. Some disobeyed, but more pulled the trigger anyway. And then they started drinking or taking drugs. They started to fall apart mentally. The Nazis started mass shootings of women and children, mostly Jewish, around early 1941. But by the end of the year, this had all but stopped, replaced by the gas chambers where the Nazi command could more effectively hide the horrors of genocide from their troops. Now, you have to understand that these Nazi soldiers were some of the most bloodthirsty, ruthless, evil people ever to walk the earth. They had done things that would be unthinkable to even the most savage humans. And yet, even they had their limits. There was a line that even they could not cross, and now would not cross, could not. I think if they could have kept shooting, they would have. But their humanity, and there was some of that left, even in these brutal killers, would not let them continue. So am I saying that the Nazis weren't so bad, or they were misunderstood, or that they had good hearts? No. I'm saying that even for the Nazis, in some cases, and whether they fulfilled it or not, there was hope. And if there's hope for them, even just a few of them, there's certainly hope for us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being human.